System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Thursday, December 11th. I'm Amin TMK, alongside Amoja Lil Tanky Sumler. Amoja, hello. How are you? Happy Thursday.
Bad news.
What is it?
Peacetime is over.
No.
Yeah, it lasted for so long, man.
I thought it would never end.
Yeah.
Well, there is some news that everyone's been talking about, and rightfully so. I will pull up the screen here for our YouTube viewers. This is from Power to the People. Proud Socialist live footage of the U.S. military swarming and seizing an oil tanker. An oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. The U.S. has just started another illegal war to steal oil. Let's take a look.
Estimated at $60 million street value worth of oil.
I can get $60 million on the street with this, man. And apparently it was going to Cuba. So
yeah,
that's the double whammy, you know, and you see them here.
They embarrassed Venezuela while coaxing, while depriving Cuba. Yeah. I mean, this is Marco Rubio written all over it. I mean, this is Marco Rubio with Hegseth in a room, like, all right, how would you do it? And they break out their G.I. Joes, you know what I'm saying? And they're like, all right, well, I'll use all my aircraft carriers. And right. I mean, it's such an overuse of force so as to be like ironic and silly. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I just want to remind everybody, this summer when Ansar Allah was doing this in the Red Sea, everyone called it terrorism, It's worth mentioning that when you take a civilian freighter, right, this is not a military vessel in any shape, fashion, or form, in the open seas, there is a term for this. And ironically, the United States are the ones that are most famous for setting the case law for this in international law. The word for this is piracy. Now,
you watch the Demon Slayer movie without paying, man.
I remember as a Gen Xer, every time I put in a little VHS, it's a little thing. They say the FBI gonna take you to jail, and piracy is a crime.
If you replicate this, we'll come and murder you and your family too.
You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, we got G.I. Joes jumping out of, helicopters, and seizing these vessels, and when they asked the president about it, it's like, I guess we're just going to have to sell it. I mean, again, these are the same people that justify lethal force being used on black men, black boys, black children. You know what I'm saying? Michael Brown, he has $16 worth of blunts, not even any marijuana found on him, and lethal force is utilized on this guy. Meanwhile, the government just jacks a load of petroleum worth $60 million. And I got to tell you, the one thing this is guaranteed to do is going to increase oil volatility, which means prices go up at the pump. The government made $60 million, but everybody else is going to have to pay for this because insurers get nervous when this kind of stuff is happening. And there's a war on petroleum that is global. There are tankers that are being attacked all around the world. There was an oil tanker that was it had a Hong Kong flag, so probably associated with the Chinese, government, but who knows, attacked off the western coast of Africa. Probably the French were involved, Anything that's not insured through Western insurance agencies right now, they're calling a shadow fleet. And they're just taking these things as if it's legal or as if there's any type of moral justification. It's just out and out theft. All of this drives petroleum prices crazy because it means that you can't rely on a constant flow, which again is great for the oil producing companies and oil producing countries, of which the United States of America happens to be one. So again, they're not just double dipping by depriving of Venezuela, of seizing money from Venezuela, which they've done several times. Even the British have like $2 billion worth of Venezuelan gold that they just have it frozen, just like the Russian assets, right? But now they're out and out stealing their petroleum. Okay, so it hurts Venezuela, it hurts Cuba, while enriching the United States several times because they keep the load, they sell the load, and their own petroleum distributors get to make more money in the meantime because oil's volatility. It's fascinating. But it is thuggish. I mean, you can't deny that it's certainly thuggish.
Well, look, here's the good news. The Nobel Peace Prize winner is Venezuelan, guys. And I don't think, I mean, if I was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, which I'm not, I probably would be like, you know what? Hijacking and stealing and pirating a oil vessel is an act of war, like you mentioned. But it seems like Maria Machado is not really involving herself in that way. She's more
she's been smuggled out of the country.
Type of behavior. Oh yeah, I didn't realize she was still in Venezuela. It actually let you know how lenient and how fair
they just had her on house arrest this whole time. She's preaching subversion and overthrow the government, and they just had her on house arrest.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's just to let you know the difference it is out there. And again, well, not again, but we were talking about Benin last time, right? Okay, so they're not able to they're not able to do what they would like to do, which is move past and sort of the traditional Western Africa vibe and go with the Sahel. They're not able to do that. Now you have places like Trinidad and Tobago, who are now being, put in this position where they have to station, military bases. Puerto Rico, a place that we were broadcasting from earlier this year, now a staging ground for war when, these countries are really would rather have no involvement in this. And it just shows America.
But how can you say no to the American Navy? This is literally how Admiral Perry opened up Japan in the 19th century, and it's unfortunate for countries like Trinidad and Tobago, because if you're Venezuela, you understand that they ain't have no real choice. But at the same time, you're still obliged to remember that they fucking did it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Americans won't be there forever. And again, a small country like Trinidad, Tobago, you're probably getting most of your petroleum from Venezuela, right? The Chinese have shown there are several levers that countries can pull that don't necessarily require, military force, but up to and including,
And it's so close. I mean, when you look at that, just the efficiency of getting oil from Venezuela, I mean, they're just a couple dozen miles away. It really doesn't make any sense. You know what it reminds me of is Europe getting this natural gas from America instead of using the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines that would have had efficient Russian energy going into Europe. And Europe is suffer. I mean, they are collapsing based off sort of their energy shortage. And, we know prices here in the States are going up, but in Europe, I mean, it is insane.
Germany's in recession.
Yeah.
Britain's in recession. France is in recession, and they're doing the best out of the EU bloc. Whatever's happening in Germany is far better than what's happening in the Greece, economy, or the economy in Italy.
You remember when Trump said the G2 and we're referencing to China? It was such a disrespect to the Europeans, man. And that's just what he likes to do. Well, and also when you mentioned, we mentioned Europe, I mentioned Europe, but also sort of the oil wars are not just in the Gulf. I mean, you see in places like the Black Sea, we remember, and that's recent. I don't know if you want to speak on it a little bit, but
it goes back to what I was talking about, the global wars on oil, right? So allegedly in the Black Sea, there was, the attack was not alleged, right? There was an oil tanker. I believe it had a Kyrgyzstan flag, right, which was part of the Soviet Union, but it's definitely now part of contemporary Russia. Is its own country, has its own culture, and and it was attacked right outside of Turkish international water. It's in the Black Sea, and allegedly the Ukrainians did this. But I remind you that ISR, which is like intelligence, and reconnaissance, intelligence, strike, and reconnaissance, all of that is still coming from NATO. All of that targeting information is coming from NATO, given to the Ukrainians, you see. And again, just the assumption that every oil tanker in the Black Sea is a Russian tanker is felonious. And that's what we saw here, right? It was not them. It wasn't even a Russian tanker, right? And so it's attacked, and I think about another thing that no one has talked about is the environmental impact. Think about that, right? Like, we all remember what happened when the Exxon Valdez, had a big oil spill. We remember what happened in the Gulf in the early 2000s. Every time you destroy an oil tanker, that is hella oil pollution all over the ocean, and that has impact. It has environmental impact. It damages the plant life there. It damages the wildlife, the fish, these impacts go far beyond this war, but again, it is an act of terrorism because these are civilian fighters. Like, these are not military vessels at all. And so, again, it could just be one of those things where it's useful to get Ukraine to take the blame for these things. It's these reasons why Ukraine has such a resentment to the West right now. Because, like, we've done your dirty work. We've done the things for you to Russia that you wanted to do but couldn't do, or else it would lead to open World War III. We've done that. The Russians are beating us, and now you're going to abandon us, But this was always going to be the play. And it's just unfortunate that Zelensky listened to Boris Johnson, when there was a peace deal to be signed. Back in 2022, there was a peace deal to be signed. And, everyone talks about these 28-point plans that's coming out of the White House, the Europeans, they'll knock off like 4 or 5. The Russians have been very forthcoming. They have a 4-point plan, and that's it. Demilitarization of Ukraine, no NATO, right? Denazification of Ukraine, and we're taking the Donbass. Like, these are the 4 points, and they've been unrelenting about those 4 points since 2022. The longer the Ukrainians take to sign this, the worse it's going to be for them, because there are limits to the economic and military strength of the West. And this is what people that are like white supremacists just don't understand. It's close to limitless, but there are finite applications of force, especially if you're not willing to go past conventional warfare, right? Which, thank God, no one has yet.
Yeah. Let's get to the second part of this video. Obviously these developments are going to continue, and it's important. Follow us on Inner City Left on Instagram if that's what you into, follow developments, because this type of stuff is it's what a rogue state does, and sort of the death throes of America. If there's such empire. A thing,
it's a pathology to a diminishing empire.
Yeah. Let's move on right here. I just want to show our audience this. Something we haven't really been talking too much about. This is in Cambodia. Those are some pretty big explosions right there. If you're not on YouTube, that's in Cambodia. It says the difference between one country having an air force and the other one doesn't. I also want to show you this, Tanky. Maybe you can help me a bit to maybe just confirm this. But I thought this was really interesting. This is from War Noir. This is the Royal Thai Army entered the Cambodian village of Pre Vedhir and destroyed the entrance of the border post. Thai troops seemingly using U.S.-made M13 APCs and Israel-made IWI Tavar TAR-21 bullpup assault rifles. I just want to play this. It's a tank going through a village, as I said, and it's pretty reckless. Clearly seems like not something that would be necessary to fight a war. You know, just as you can see the tank here.
Back that tango. Back that tango.
Yeah, man. I mean, pretty incredible stuff. So, you know, I think we've sort of been discussing it, and we know kind of earlier this year there, you know, the elections going on right now. I think there's elections going on right now in Thailand, but again, more of a Western-backed kind of president. They were one of the few countries in Asia that were, you know, fully legalized weed. And that was something that for the first time in their history, because Thailand, I guess, never officially colonialized. Maybe you can colonize. Maybe you can speak more to that. You know, kind of just changed up over the last year. And now you see them going and bombing, you know, places in Cambodia who obviously don't have the same military force to fight back. What are your thoughts on this? What do we know about this?
I mean, that's the thing is, like, when this war popped off earlier this year, you know, everyone's like, oh, it's over. But it never was. It was just kind of on pause. I will correct you on the one thing. That was not a tank. That's an APC, which is an armored personnel carrier.
To the untrained eye, they look a bit.
Right, but I promise you a tank could make short work of that shit pretty quickly and from about 1.5 miles away, you know, with one shot. But yeah, no, I mean, I tell you what, I'd rather be in an APC than be infantry. You know what I'm saying? Like APCs carry infantry normally. It's like I said, it's armored. You're not. It's the kind of thing where you're not going to be able to stop it with a silly little AK. You know, like 20 of you can have AKs, and it's not going to help. You're going to get rolled the fuck over. And that's it. Just goes to what we've always said about wars, right? The most provisioned army with the best morale and the best intel wins. You know, Thailand's GDP is orders of magnitude bigger than Cambodia's, right? And so for Cambodia to have ever provoked the initial onset of violence, that was the mistake. Like, you don't give your bigger, stronger adversary an excuse to hit you. You just don't do it. You know, unless you have something that they don't have, and they don't. Like, militarily, Cambodia is no match for Thailand. The only place where they begin to have any type of an advantage is were it to become a guerrilla war, right? Where, like, the Thailandese army attempts to invade Cambodia, you know, then I don't see them having much more success than the Americans did, you know, in the Vietnam conflict. But it's not going to be that. It's really mostly going to be punitive strikes from the Thailandese Air Force, because it's essentially risk-free. And again, this is what I talk about, like the skill of the American empire. For all of the deficits of it being an empire in decline, they're able to still do this without showing what the real hand is, you know, and really ultimately it gains several things. One, you get to battle test different platforms like this APC, which is American, right? You get to put it into a situation where you can see this weapon is blooded, which helps you sell more of those. You sell first place. The Israelis get to test out new weapons. Oh, look at this bullpup pistol. You know, see how good, you know, the rates of fire is, how often it jams. That helps you sell more. But also, more important than any of those things is the underlying fact that it adds instability to Far Asia, which becomes a threat to China implicitly. And that is skill, right? You're making money. You're dipping and double dipping, because America also, you sells weapons to the Cambodians, just not as much because they're a far poorer country.
Man, I mean, yeah, and it kind of just goes back to when the West is involved in your country, there is going to be problems. There's going to be altercations. There's going to be escalations. And, this is, I guess, just another part of it. Looking at 100,000 people displaced. There's also flooding going on in the area right now, just adding to sort of the general human suffering, which is what war brings. And it's always, the poorest people, the people who don't have the means to flee or exit the country or go stay at a more protected part of the country that suffer. And 100,000 people, that's quite a lot. And in the world right now, there's a lot of people that are being displaced by war or climate, or a combination of both. And it's unfortunate to see this. Yeah. Any more thoughts? I mean, what are your feelings sort of in general about
this is a turn up, right? I mean, one thing I do want to return back to is you said it earlier, an embargo is an act of war. Okay. The fact that the Venezuelan national product, oil, right, has been seized now in the open seas by military. I mean, that's an act of war. Like, Venezuela will probably not react in a kinetic way, but they would, by the rules of international war, have a right to retaliate. And again, in many ways, this is what the Navy is attempting to do. They're attempting to goad a response out of the Venezuelan military, which will give them, again, political cover to do strikes. And I think that's really what they want to do. It's like, we'll continue to siphon off your resources, until you meet us in the field of battle. When you meet us in the field of battle, from there, we'll be able to turn up and they'll be able to sell that to the world. And I just go back to the irony of being a young leftist in the 2000s out there protesting against the Iraq war, knowing full well who Saddam is and what he represented, and just the lack of activity I've seen on the left in the West as it relates to Maduro, which is a brown socialist government. And again, it just goes to show the skill of the reverence that so-called leftists have for Democrats, because Democrats have not said anything positive about the Venezuelan government. People feel like it's okay, something has to happen there, without ever asking, like, what gives the United States the justification to do that, right? Like, we were watching a seminar the other day about what's happening, with the coups in Western Africa. And the speaker said something to the effect of, one of the reasons that the last coup failed was because they didn't have the support of the people. Like, the army didn't go to the people and be like, yo, we're going to get rid of the president. What do you think? Right? Which is why it did work in places like Niger, and Sierra Leone. The people are with Maduro. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to be able to you can kill Maduro, probably. I would be amazed if the Americans couldn't. But can you really rule that country? I just don't think that can happen. And and I think the Americans don't think so either. Because if they thought that they could win electorally, they wouldn't have squirreled Machado out of the country. So now we have one of these situations once again where she's like the Dalai Lama. You're not even in the country, and you're somehow the de facto real ruler. And that's what they're up to. It's a clever game, but it's an open hand. If you know the signs, it's almost like a pathology, just watching these things happen in this order. What will be interesting will be see if the Venezuelans take the bait and what happens from there. Because no one really knows what their ability to project force is or to defend against force. We can all make conjectures all day long, but everyone will pay to find out. And that's where we are in that nice little waiting period to see what happens. The bully has challenged, the guy in the schoolyard out to a fight after school, and all of his friends are watching.
Yeah, I mean the strings have been being pulled for a long time. I mean, there was always there was that pushback from Lula about Venezuela entering BRICS. And that was a lot of pressure from the United States, not to take Lula off the hook, but you are looking at the sort of the reality of what it means to be allied with Venezuela and Cuba. Those are the two places I think they'd like to continue to destabilize the most, and the Cubans are going to suffer because obviously the embargo doesn't allow them to get a lot of resources.
The embargo, by the way, is a unilateral embargo. Like the United States holds it. You know what I'm saying?
The rest of the world, like every UN vote is like Ukraine, Israel, United States, and like Micronesia is like, nah, keep it.
Right, like even Britain either doesn't vote or votes for like the removal of the embargo.
Did you see that they had like anti-colonial day? And America Israel. Like, nah. Yeah. Now we keeping it. We keeping it. Like that's just cartoonishly evil. It's like
you start to wonder why all of our best friends were the bad guys in World War II. Germany, Italy, Japan, inextricably tied to the guys that were the bad guys in World War II.
Yeah. So, Cuba, we got Trinidad, Tobago, we got Venezuela, Puerto Rico, destabilized. Now we have things going on in Thailand and Cambodia. Obviously, the pressure that Japan was rhetorically at least trying to put on China and Taiwan. I just want to say, like, America, man, always fucking with people, man. Always fucking with people. In the Sahel, they was going at Ibrahim Traore for a while. I know I'm missing so many. I mean, what they're doing in South Korea, the society
but some people
going
will pull up. I mean, that's what the Chinese proved. Their aircraft carrier was doing maneuvers in the open seas. They were broadcasting where they were. They had an area of exclusion. They've already released the tapes even. Japanese fighter came into that area of exclusion. They painted his ass. Like, we will fucking blow you out of the fucking sky.
But, and they do what they can to test here or there. But what they really are getting are consolidating the smaller pieces. Let's not forget Nepal a little earlier this year. Mm-hmm. Their pushback sort of in
Jurassic
places
Park,
like
man. It's the velociraptors testing the fence to see where's the fence weak. That's the way you need to think about the American military machine right now.
Yeah, and let's not also forget, Iran is still on a slow boil here, and any time could pop up. Syria, again, their entire country destabilized. Christians and Alawites, people with religious minorities there, they're being killed, man. I mean, and this is all America's doing, and this is why, whatever you think about Maduro, maybe you don't like him, maybe there's some social issues that you don't like about him, and I get that. But the only alternative is the Machado right-wing puppet party. There's not a lot of again.
War is worse than Maduro.
I'm not saying that there's not third parties. Again, I'm not saying that I even understand the Venezuelan elections on that part. But when it comes to their elections, there are only two real players in terms of their parties. It's either socialist left or a puppet from the United States. Which would you like?
Yeah. And the indigenous people are always on the 85% side of the population that is with the Maduro party. Again, you can say Maduro's the worst person on earth. He's not, but let's say he was. Maduro is not worse than war. War is the worst thing. There's nothing close to war. Nothing is close to war that humans do. And if you're advocating for ousting Maduro, you're advocating for war. And so you lose any moral argument.
The right-wing party candidate, not Machado, she was not allowed to run, but her puppet, when he left the polling places, he said that Israel has a right to defend itself. And when Maduro left the polling place, he said free Palestine. So if Palestine is a litmus test, like everybody on the left, right, center, wherever you look, unless you're a Zionist or evangelical or you're part of AIPAC, you know that Palestine is a litmus test. So as Palestine is a litmus test, tell me how on earth you could be for someone who is saying Israel has a right to defend itself, especially going up against someone who's saying free Palestine. Let's give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We're available everywhere you find podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on YouTube. Obviously, if you're here, you can see our lovely faces. If not, we appreciate your love on the podcast. Rate us. Like, subscribe if you are on YouTube. Fables, Foibles, Other American Sins, available in the description. InnerCityLeft.com. Patreon.com/InnerCityLeft. Our patrons are the best. We love you guys. And we're not stopping. We're keeping it moving. And, that's all I got. Tanky, what did I miss? What are your final thoughts before we get out of here?
Nah, man, it's a whole lot, and we've covered pretty much what you need to know for this week. But those are the flashpoints.
Yeah, facts. For Amoja, Lil Tanky Summer, I'm me and TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.